Przejdźmy sobie do tego filmu, Throne and Liberty. Ja miałem nagrywać o Throne and Liberty w zeszłym tygodniu, ale z racji tego, że te informacje się tak rozjeżdżają, to doszedłem do wniosku, że nie chcę siać jakichś plotek i nie będę po prostu tego nagrywał. Ale dużo osób zaczęło nagrywać. I my sobie obejrzymy tego jegomościa, który ma bardzo duże wyświetlenia i być może ja też wam coś o tym opowiem. Zweryfikujemy, czy to można przyjmować na 100%, czy też nie. A skąd tyle informacji? Otóż dlatego, że rozpoczęły się zamknięte testy w Amazonie. Jedziemy. Cyk.
Throne and Liberty is still one of, if not the best looking MMO slated for 2023. Now, admittedly, the list of competition is short, with only a few other MMOs tentatively planned for the year, those being Blue Protocol, Odin Valhalla Rising, and Ashfall, which, if I'm speaking frankly, Blue Protocol is the only decent looking one of that bunch, but even if competition is light, it doesn't really matter because I genuinely think...
No ale Blue Protocol, wiemy, to jest taki target dla osób, które uwielbiają Genshin Impact. Ja w tym targecie nie jestem, ale na pewno też w Blue Protocol zagram.
There's some really cool things about Throne and Liberty. They've said it's going to be a third-person hybrid action combat MMO, which looks to mean we're probably going to be getting a soft lock system that blends action and tab targeting, kind of like what we see in Guild Wars 2 and...
Tak, tutaj będzie tap target, ale tap target z elementami uników, trzymania jakiegoś tam dystansu, blokowania, więc to będzie taki tap targetowy action combat. Jakiś taki mix.
And Elder Scrolls Online. The game's primary focus will be on challenging cooperative PvE. We've seen stuff like these non-instanced, open-world, multi-layered dungeons where you can go deep in and just like have people running all over the place and stuff. It sounds really cool.
Ja nie ukrywam, że jestem gigantycznym fanem takich otwartych, wielopoziomowych dungeonów, gdzie wchodzimy coraz niżej. Tam gdzieś w jakichś kryptach kryją się bossy. Uwielbiam taki content. To mi się podoba.
Cool, bunch of big boss battles with what we've seen like being hundreds of players on the screen. There's also going to be various types of PvP, including open world with a PK system, some smaller scale things like arenas, and even these large 100+ player castle sieges with these giant golems smashing through walls. They've also got some really cool dynamic features, particularly with the weather and day-night cycles that directly affect the environment, with like areas flooding when it rains, becoming inaccessible, or giving you access to new spots, or enemies getting strong.
To jest taki nowy element w grach MMORPG, który zaczyna być wkładany do tych nowszych gier. Właśnie to, jak pogoda wpływa na dostępność pewnych miejsc w grze. Tego jestem bardzo ciekaw. Taką grę jeszcze z takim systemem nie grałem, a to może być naprawdę bardzo fajne urozmaicenie.
Stronger during storms,
tak, Hitbox,
stuff
dopiero
like
zaczęliśmy.
that. But on top of that, weather is also going to alter player spells and attacks, like we've seen the Wizard's Lightning Bolt, which during a clear day is single target, but then when it rains, it turns into a chain lightning. It also looks like there's going to be a lot of different traversal systems, like your player can mantle and climb a lot of stuff in the environment. We're going to have access to a grapple hook, letting us zip around, and pretty much everyone in the game plays as a druid, as it features this transforming into animals to increase your land, sea, and air movement speed. So yeah, like I said, there's just a lot of cool systems and features with the game, and that is only like the bullet point preview of everything we know about Throne and Liberty at the moment, much of which sounds really cool. I'm really looking forward to jumping in and trying the game myself. Now, since our last Throne and Liberty video, which was back in December, there's been quite a few updates for the game, between a few rounds of alpha testing, out of which came some interesting leaks, but then also we had some official announcements, including the Western release window that looks to be just a few months away. And you know what? While you're waiting those few months to play a new MMO, why not check out an MMO that's playable right now? Such as today's sponsor.
No, tego sponsora możemy sobie chyba pominąć. To jest jakaś mobilka.
First, I want to start off with some of the official news and announcements. So back in January, NC announced that they would soon be conducting one of the final rounds of testing for Throne and Liberty, and that anyone living in South Korea could register
tak, i już
to
wtedy
play.
trochę
Test
przecieków
servers
było.
would be live on February 21st and 22nd, lasting for roughly 5 hours each one of those days.
Ale już tutaj was sprowadzam. To wygląda jak mobilka, ta gra tak nie wygląda, bo to są jakieś tam te pierwsze testy. To nie jest ten faktyczny gameplay z tej gry. która jest teraz.
From my understanding, this wasn't one of those like Korean tests that you could just sign up with a VPN, because apparently the testing would all be done
To, co jest na
locally
ekranie.
at participating locations in Korea. So this was a very much so localized event. Then in mid-February, during NCSoft's financial reportings call, they held a Q&A with investors that revealed some pretty big details about their plans for the game. First, confirming that the final round of Korean testing was taking place later that month.
Przepraszam. Podobno ta gra tak nie wygląda, tak? Że tamte te nagrania to były jakieś stare nagrania.
After which they said a global marketing campaign would begin ramping up. They then said they would be launching the game at some point in the first half of 2023, which would mean anywhere between right now and sometime in June or early July, and that another company would be in charge of launching the game in the West. Following that, on February 20th, they tweeted out that that final round of testing was taking place in just a couple of days. This was like their first really public-facing announcement of this test. And the final bit of this tweeted out announcement said that we should stay tuned for more information sometime soon. And it turns out that information, which was revealed just a few days later, was the news that Amazon Games would be the one publishing Throne and Liberty, continuing
Tak
Amazon's recent
Ale od tej informacji
or
trochę
just
trwało.
involvement with the MMO genre from
Aż
their
będzie
very
tak,
own
aż
developed
coś
and
się
published
zacznie
New
dziać.
World, but then also the publishing of Lost Ark, the announced publishing of Blue Protocol, and now they are also publishing Throne and Liberty. Now, taking a look at the official announcement on Amazon's page does give us a few more details about all of this. So it says Amazon Games and NCSoft today announced an agreement to bring massively multiplayer online RPG Throne and Liberty to North America, South America, Europe, and Japan. Amazon Games will publish the title for PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and X, and it will support cross-platform play. And I do believe this is the first time I have seen that cross-platform play is going to be a thing, which I think is really cool because it just opens up the
Wiadomo, im więcej graczy, tym fajniej. Po prostu.
the potential player base all playing on the same servers. Going on, it says here that Throne and Liberty is a MMORPG that combines story-driven adventure and action combat.
Ale z racji tego, że pojawiają się te konsole, to ja się od razu boję o ten kombat, że on w feelingu będzie taki jak Elden Ring. I że finalnie będzie się lepiej grało na padzie. Oby tak nie było.
Further driving into the action portion of this. Although from early testing, it does seem like there is a strong tab target emphasis. I am just going to conclude from all of this, from all of the tab target discussion, everything we've seen that looked like tab target, and the action combat being brought up here and in other places, that yeah, it's going to be like that hybrid system, that soft lock system. So think ESO, think Guild Wars 2. That's what I'm assuming here. They say in Throne and Liberty, players enter a vast world with constantly shifting geographical and environmental features that change the course of play. This undoubtedly referring to the fact that the weather changes the actual environment, opening up and restricting access to certain areas. Really cool stuff. In fact, in one of the videos we've seen, we saw that during a rainstorm, it like activated this magical rune system, which opened the entrance to the stone dungeon. They're showing some really cool stuff here when it comes to how the environment plays into the gameplay experience that I just think it's pretty cool. It says massive scale PvP and PvE combat are fundamental to Throne and Liberty, and players can transform into animals, soaring through the air or exploring the depths of the sea, even tipping the odds of battle in their favor by triggering
I mandarynka. I ta mandarynka nieszczęsna. Ale mnie to złości.
powerful environmental effects like solar eclipses or rainstorms, which again plays into the fact that we've got the day-night cycle, we've got rain and stuff, the rain, the storms, a gust of winds, all of those things that, yes, players will be able to influence themselves, be it through really rare gear or special abilities with long cooldowns, which I believe is specifically what we have heard. And then finally, wrapping it up, it says that Throne and Liberty continues Amazon Games' momentum in games publishing, following the success of its internally developed MMO New World and action RPG Lost Ark from Smilegate, both of which have topped Steam and Twitch charts and continue to nurture strong player communities. I will wholeheartedly agree with them that yes, both of those games did in fact top charts, like some very impressive numbers, launch day numbers, concurrent player number peaks. Both of those games really did phenomenally when it comes to drawing initial interest. As to how they have maintained their player bases,
fajnie, że dodał początkowego
currently, it
zainteresowania.
seems like both of them are pretty much in sharp decline, somewhere between 90 to 95% of reduction in peak player count from what they saw at launch. Although I think Lost Ark has maintained higher steady numbers, there's also the other side of that where a good chunk of those might be people multi-boxing.
To są po prostu boty i multibox,
that
dokładnie.
are evidently rampant in that game. But regardless, I can't take it away. We can't take away from Amazon the fact that they have launched games that saw some pretty phenomenal early success. And then also, I want to point out whatever problems you may have with
Czy myślę, że Throne and Liberty odniesie większy sukces niż New World? Myślę, że nie. Myślę, że nie, z tym, że podejrzewam, że Throne and Liberty będzie cichszą premierą, bo to się ma zgrać w bardzo niefartownym okresie, więc na pewno zainteresowanie będzie o wiele niższe, ale wydaje mi się, że mogą być wyższe liczby. Jak zestawimy te gry teraz ze sobą, no nie? I będzie powiedzmy sierpień, no to Throne and Liberty będzie grało więcej osób niż w New World. Tak mi się wydaje, ale premiera nie będzie taką głośną premierą, nie będzie to aż tak duże wydarzenie. Tak mi się wydaje, ale oczywiście mogę się mylić. Zobaczymy.
Lost Ark as a game, it seems like Amazon's handling of the publishing of this game was developed by another company. How the publishing in the West was done seems like they did a pretty good job. So with that said, I'm fairly confident that any of the problems that we may end up having with Throne and Liberty, I don't think Amazon will be the ones at fault there. As to how they've handled New World, I think it's a decent game that probably just needed a lot more content and some more interesting systems. And maybe they're getting there. I really haven't kept up with New World in the past few months. But regardless, let's get back into the Throne and Liberty discussion. So
Ciężko nie było. Można było nadążać. Nic się nie działo przez prawie pół
all
roku.
of that official stuff, it's pretty cool. We know now, at the very least, to recap, we know they should be releasing the game at some point in the first half of 2023. They're running out of time here, but that's the current schedule, and that Amazon will be the ones publishing, which, as I just said, I don't...
No i tutaj niestety zdania są podzielone. Jedna strona, czysto teoretycznie z zamkniętych testów, informują o tym, że gra zostanie wydana w czerwcu. Z kolei druga strona, i tutaj strona, to są jakieś zeznania finansowe, tego typu rzeczy, informują o tym, że druga połowa tego roku. Więc tak naprawdę nie wiadomo. Jeżeli będzie to druga połowa tego roku, no to podejrzewam, że oni sobie wycyrklują tak, żeby wydodżować dodatek do New World, żeby po prostu gry im się nie gryzły. Z kolei pierwsza połowa roku, czerwiec, to moim zdaniem jest bardzo zły pomysł. Po prostu. I lepiej byłoby gdzieś tam sobie ten termin odsunąć. Ale zobaczymy.
think is a negative. There are a lot worse publishers of Eastern MMOs coming to the West that we know could have taken this over, and I think Amazon is probably the one who's done the best of it so far. What's more interesting is some of the leaked information, in particular that event that took place in February, that Korean local specific hands-on playtest. We got some leaked information out of that, basically recapping some of what people thought about their time with the game. Now, evidently this test was incredibly small. It was said that somewhere around 100 people were invited to try it out during these couple of days. And one of the general consensus when it comes to what the game is like is it was said that it feels like a combination of Lineage, World of Warcraft, The Witcher, and Lost Ark. I'm not exactly sure what to make of it. Obviously, the game has a Lineage heritage because that is the franchise that Throne and Liberty, TNL, Project TL, that is where it comes from. World of Warcraft for maybe the modern day systems, Witcher for maybe the setting and visuals, and Lost Ark, maybe the monetization scheme. I don't know, possible. Some highlights here from this leaked thread that came via a Twitter post. They said that while the game is cross-platform, it does have a very strong PC feeling to it, which is good to hear as far as I'm concerned. Visuals were said to be pretty strong. It looks good, the game looks good, and that pretty much pans out from what I've seen in the trailers. Maybe a little generic looking, but I do think the visuals and some of what they've shown looks pretty awesome. They said that NC has in fact put a big focus on the story.
Ja jakoś tak nie umiem ocenić, chyba po tym, co tutaj widzimy, że gra jest nie wiadomo jak ładna, bo to wiadomo, te rzeczy się zmieniają w procesie produkcyjnym wielokrotnie. Ale z tego, co z przecieków wynika, co jest moim gigantycznym zaskoczeniem, ten drugi element, że gra jest bardzo ładna, że detal jest wspaniały, że optymalizacja gry jest na niesamowitym poziomie. I tu jest moje zaskoczenie, bo jak oglądaliśmy te nagrania, które były w 4K, no to tam to nie były dobre nagrania, tak? To było widać, że tam klatkarz jest bardzo niski, ale to mogły być konsolówki. Bo podejrzewam, że na konsolach właśnie tak to wszystko będzie działało. Ale na PC-tach może rzeczywiście jest lepiej. No zobaczymy. Z przecieków wynika, że gra jest ładna i płynna.
Story, personally, not that big of a deal to me, not really what I come to the MMO genre for, but for people who are looking for a good story in their MMOs, it seems like NC might deliver. And then they said that there looks to be a lot of solo potential for this game, which is absolutely like the lifeblood of the MMO genre. I know massively multiplayer online, it's in the name, right? But far as I know, a good chunk of the people who play MMOs like to play solo, at least some of the time, if not all of the time, barring
Tak, gra MMORPG powinna mieć elementy do rozgrywki solo i grupowej. Tak, żeby można było zawsze, jak się zalogujesz, coś po prostu sobie robić w tej grze.
Content that requires groups. I know just personally, I spend a lot of my MMO time mostly doing stuff solo and then finding groups for the things that require groups. So good to hear that Throne and Liberty is going to have solo potential. Now, one thing that came from this that is probably going to raise some eyebrows was this is a translation, keep in mind, and translations don't always translate. It's just the nature of different languages. But it was said that there is automatic hunting in the game. To me, this sounds like what it's supposed to say.
I to nie jest tylko auto hunt, ale też auto trace, czyli bierzecie sobie trasę gdzieś tam na mapie i postać biegnie przez całą mapę do tego punktu, no i też tam się wtedy odbywa ten auto hunt. I tutaj twórcy, nie, przepraszam, czy ta osoba, która ten link podesłała, zostało to określone w taki sposób, że walka z mobami jest trudna, więc ten auto hunt nie do końca jest czymś takim opłacalnym. Ale jest coś takiego, tak? Jest auto hunt, ten trace, to namierzanie, to bieganie automatyczne, więc coś takiego tutaj po prostu na dzień dzisiejszy i w trakcie tych testów już w Amazonie, tych zamkniętych testów, coś takiego było.
Is auto combat. And to further support this notion, some of the leaked videos that have come out from testing over these past few months, there's been leaks. I'm not going to show it here because that'll get this video taken down. But yes, we have seen auto combat. If you don't know, auto playing is something that is common in many Eastern developed MMOs, and it's basically in the game you can hit a button and your character does all of the things for you. It engages in combat, it does its rotating spells, it uses things on cooldowns. They're games that play yourself, and it seems like it might be the case that Throne and Liberty is going to have auto combat. And some of the complaints that were coming out of this early testing was the fact that, hey, auto hunting is not fun, which I don't want a game that plays itself. I mean, there's, the auto chess games were kind of cool. I like those, but that's not what I want out of my MMOs. And it also has me concerned that the basic combat will be dumbed down enough that auto hunting is even a viable option, which, I don't think I was necessarily expecting crazy in-depth, difficult combat where you were just on the...
No właśnie, ja też trochę w to nie wierzę, że ta walka będzie jakaś niesamowicie ciężka, że no mówmy się, no ja rozumiem, że są takie elementy, że jak wejdziesz sobie na pierwszym levelu, nie będziesz mieć niczego, tylko już mieć w rękach patyk, no to nie będziesz mieć żadnych skilli, to ta walka będzie się wydawała ciężka, będzie trzeba oczywiście coś ją zablokować, uniknąć, no ale jak już zbierzesz sprzęt, jak już będziesz mieć skille, no to będziesz podchodzić, robić 2 obroty, i po mobach, no.
The verge of death with every pull. That's not what I was expecting from Throne and Liberty. That's not what I expect from most MMOs, especially most Eastern developed MMOs. A lot of it is just like smashing through hordes of enemies. In most of the games in the genre nowadays, that's just kind of how it is. The presence of auto hunting and the fact that this game is going to be playable on phones, which, to clarify, it's not going to have a phone version of the game, but there will be a streaming service that lets you play the game on mobile devices. And even just the fact that that is a reality. Yes, the game is going to have a way to play it on the phones. It just won't be a phone app, if that distinction makes any sense or matters at all. I'm pretty confident from these leaks, from the fact that there's going to be a phone version of the game, and from the leaks before these leaks, the actual gameplay we've seen that there's going to be auto combat in this game. And maybe just the presence of that is enough to put people off. I absolutely don't love it. I don't want, that's not the news I was hoping to hear. And then the last bit of info that came from this leaked thread was said that there was this system in the game called Magic Doll that boosts experience and drop rates. Now, there were no details as to what this Magic Doll system was, if it was like a buff that you could get in the game, if it was a consumable, in which case we might assume that
No co to będzie, no? Magic Doll system, który buffuje ci expa i drop. No chyba to jest logiczne, że to właśnie będzie ten aspekt pay to win, który w tej grze będzie. To jest gra, która będzie darmowa, w której będzie item shop, w której NC Soft powiedział, że będzie delikatne pay to win. Więc to właśnie będzie ten system. Będzie się pewnie kupowało jakąś laleczkę, czy jakieś balsamiki dla tej laleczki i ta laleczka będzie ci, w zależności od tego, jak tą laleczkę tam ubierzesz, czy założysz jej majteczki, czy skarpetki, czy koszulkę, czy czapeczkę, czy natrzesz ją olejkiem, to tyle expa będzie ci dawała dodatkowego i tyle szans na drop. Tak będzie. I nie łudźcie się, że tu nie będzie w tej grze pay to win, błagam.
Would be tied to the cash shop. There was no further extrapolation as to this, just it was said Magic Doll is a thing and it boosts experience and drop rates. So we'll see what that...
Okej, będzie inaczej, przepraszam. Ta laleczka pewnie będzie można zdobyć te boostery za darmo, ale też będą w sklepie. Dodatkowe, żeby więcej tych boosterów wpakować, tak? Będzie można tylko tam, nie wiem, 2 darmowe wrzucić i 5 kolejnych płatnych.
That means a bit concerning.
To są tylko moje przypuszczenia, żeby ktoś tego nie wziął za pewnik czasem, ale podejrzewam właśnie, że tak to będzie
wyglądało.
Some
of the stuff here, in particular, there was also some discussion about how it seems like the game is going to be heavily monetized, which I guess should...
Dlatego uważam, że New World jest najlepszy, bo nie jest pay to win. Dla niektórych osób już w tym momencie po wyjściu Battle Passa jest pay to win. Dla mnie nie, aczkolwiek rozumiem czyjeś spojrzenie na to, że może to być pay to win. Dla mnie nie jest w przełożeniu na stare serwery. Gdyby to był jakiś świeży start, no to wtedy osoba z taką przepustką sezonową będzie mieć przewagę. Będzie mieć przewagę, ale w zasadzie też będzie spowolniona troszeczkę. Bo no dobra, to nie jest film o przepustce sezonowej w New World.
Didn't come as too much of a surprise. Now there was another leak that just happened like yesterday as of this
Przepraszam, zatrzymam na chwilę, ponieważ mam telefon.
Screen grab of what looks to be the alpha for Throne and Liberty here in the Western version. This was specifically on an Amazon website. The quote here is, after an exciting announcement in February, the Amazon Games team invites Amazonians, I believe that's just people who work for Amazon, to alpha test Throne and Liberty between April 4th and April 9th. So this was a leaked, it wasn't even a real screenshot, it was a photo of a screen. How verifiable is this? I'm not sure. There are sources that I've heard that this is in fact something that's happening right now, because right now, as I'm recording this, it is April 4th. So apparently there might be an Amazon Games alpha test of Throne and Liberty taking place at the moment. And if that is in fact the case, if that's happening, I would expect at some point within the next couple of weeks some leaks to come out of this as well, because that's just how it is. Even with these heavy NDAs, we always end up seeing leaks. So to wrap things up here, I want to say that yes, I am looking forward to this game. As I mentioned on the top, I think it's cool to have a new MMO, but as much as I am excited for it, I have to keep reminding myself that this is a game developed by NCSoft, and for that reason,
dokładnie, to jest gra od NCSoftu i ja też cały czas dlatego patrzę na ten tytuł tak jak patrzę, bardzo się cieszę, że wychodzi, ale wiem finalnie, co to będzie za twór. Dlatego mój hype nie jest jakiś gigantyczny, ja na tę grę czekam bardzo, bardzo długo. Od momentu, gdy pojawiło się Diablo 3, to tak naprawdę czekam na Project TL i to jest właśnie ta gra, która się zmieniła na 1000 już różnych sposobów, przeobraziła, więc jest to wiele lat wyczekiwania, ale gdzieś tam na końcu no, wiem, co to będzie a że azjatyckie produkcje już mi się troszeczkę znudziły przez te wiele lat, no to ale chętnie zagram.
Expect a big old cash shop full of some variations of pay to win, time savers, boost, currency exchanging, outfits with huge quality of life buffs, you name it, it'll probably be in there. Ultimately though, the way I feel about this is I will be happy if we get a good month or two of fun from the game. I'm really not
Dokładnie. Miesiąc albo 2 miesiące takiej fajnej, dobrej, startowej zabawy w tym tytule, czyli tego, co jest takie tego najprzyjemniejszego momentu w grze MMORPG. A potem odstaweczka.
Too much more. That tells you where my expectations are, at least when it comes for a lot of Eastern.
Mam takie samo podejście.
MMOs in particular. Just this very narrow genre of games that it just always seems to be heavy pay to win, and so much of that has spilled over into everything that's Western developed as well. This isn't specific to like Eastern develops MMOs, with but a few rare exceptions. Most modern day new MMOs have all of that stuff as well. But regardless, here's the deal. If this comes out and I can sit down and experience a new world and play with all those people, enjoy that hype around launch and going out and discover new things and taking on these challenges and play up until the point that I'm fed up with all of the game's garbage and whatever that entails, I'm fine with that. That's about all I expect. And there's so many games out there, way too many games than we can even reasonably play. It's fine, whatever. I'll take what I can get from this thing. As an MMO fan, I am anemic when it comes to just give me more, right? You know, give me something else. Give me something new. I need something fresh. Come on, please help brother out here. As for the release, like I said, Throne and Liberty is still, as of now, planned and said to be launching in the first half of 2023. Now, during a recent shareholder meeting, they were asked about this, and their response was that they're coordinating the release date with Amazon. So it sounds like the ball is just in their court. My guess is Amazon is currently focused on the localization as well as a release timing, trying to find a window where there isn't too much competition. You know, June is going to be a pretty big month, especially, you know, Diablo 4 is launching. You might not think they're competitors, but they are absolutely competitors. There is certainly a huge crossover in the Venn diagram of Diablo 4 players and MMO fans. And then there's also the Diablo players who hate MMOs, but don't worry about them. They're probably not watching this channel, right? Anyway, we'll see what happens. I don't know if they're actually going to hit that first half or not, especially since nothing's been announced and you got like a couple months left. So maybe closer to fall, sometime around August, September, something like that. We'll see. But either way, despite all the drawbacks, despite the fact that it's probably going to be super pay to win and have a huge cash shop, despite the fact that it's got likely, almost certainly, an autoplay feature to the game, it's a new MMO. I'm going to want to check it out. I'll keep you up to date as we get any big new information. But that's going to
be it.
Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed the vid, and I'll see
to
you
jest
in the next
dokładnie
one.
moje podejście. Będzie autobattle, będzie samoczynne bieganie, będzie potężne pay to win, będą skakały mandarynki i będą się działy cuda na ekranie, ale to będzie gra free to play, gra MMORPG, na którą czekamy wiele lat, więc chętnie w nią zagram i prawdopodobnie pogram w nią miesiąc, może 2, a potem odłożę na bok, bo nie będę chciał brać udziału w tym wyścigu związanym z kto wyda więcej pieniędzy i szybciej wymaksuje swoją postać.